Hey boys and girls, it's Mrs. Kneifel. Of course, who else would it be? In this video, I'm going to go over our packet pages for chapters 10 through 16. And then I'm going to make another video doing 17 through 22 because that was all weeks 2. So I'm going to get started. What page does it start on? Ooh, vocab for 10 through 16. Just like before, Mrs. Kneifel's doing it along with you too, so don't feel like you're the only one. Okay, so you had to draw a line. Mrs. Kneifel thinks drawing lines is crazy because then I can't see anything. So I just wrote the letter next to the number, which is totally fine, or you can draw a line, whatever you want to do. So number 1 was gullible, D, easily tricked. Number 2 was edible, G, fit to eat, meaning you can eat it. That means edible, you can eat it. Flinch, 3, was B. No, I lied. Taking it back. Flinch was A. Drawback, shrink, like, don't touch me. Number 4 was anonymous, and that was B. The unknown name or source. 5 is malevolent, and that is F. Harmful or evil. 6 is primitive, and that is C, old-fashioned, unsophisticated, unrefined. And lastly, accumulate is E, to gather or collect. Some of you guys accumulate lots of stuff. Mrs. Kneifel tries not to accumulate lots of stuff. I like to get rid of things. All right, now we're moving on to the next section where you had to use those vocab words and fill them into the sentences. So number 1 is flinch. You will flinch automatically when a large object comes close to your face. 2. Several students narrowed their eyes and cast malevolent looks at the only student who had completed their homework assignment, so they casted evil or harmful looks at them. 3 is edible. Some mushrooms are edible, but others are extremely poisonous and must never be eaten. 4 is accumulate. My parents warned me not to accumulate many more comic books or I would have to move out of my room. Number 5 is gullible. Knowing how gullible my sister could be, I would not let her speak to the salesman on the telephone. 6 is primitive. Paintings that were once considered primitive have been executed by untrained artists, are now shown in galleries and museums. And lastly, number 7 is anonymous. There was no way we could respond to the anonymous letter we received. So that was the vocab for 10 through 16. If you have any questions, of course, drop them below. Now, the literary, whatever that word is, devices. The first one was foreshadowing. Foreshadowing refers to hints and clues an author gives about future events in the story. What do you think the author is foreshadowing in the last paragraph of chapter 16? I wanted to read chapter 16 to you guys real quick before I give you my answer. So the last paragraph of chapter 16 was short. As we swept across South Dakota towards the Badlands, the whispers no longer said hurry, hurry, or rush, rush. Now they said slow down, slow down. I could not figure this out. It seemed some sort of warning, but I did not have too much time to think about it as I was busy telling about Phoebe. So when I think about foreshadowing, Mrs. Kneifel loves to find foreshadowing in books. It's one of the things I'm good at. I'm also, like, even when I just watch a TV show, I love to find the foreshadowing. But when I think about the foreshadowing for this, I think instead of the hurry, hurry, they're talking about the slow down. And maybe it is the author's way of telling her, like, she's running out of time with her grandparents or something. Because, you know, she's on this trip with her grandparents. And now instead of hurrying to her mom, they're saying slow down. So I think maybe it has to do with time and her grandparents and stuff. That's what I put for my answer. I'd love to hear what you put for yours. Then imagery, they talked about an image is a mental picture evoked in prose and poetry by the use of metaphors and similes and other figures of speech. What bird imagery have we encountered so far? So there's been a lot of different bird imagery. I just put down two. We heard about the songbirds a ton, and then the warbling birds. So we hear about birds like every time you're hearing about trees, we're hearing about birds. So you could have written down any answer for that. I'd been good with it. Where is sorry, so many pages. Okay, we're moving on to page 10. There were 4 chapter review questions and 2 writing activities. Now, I've already said this like 10 times, but I'm just going to say it again, just in case someone's still not getting it. Your review questions, you can do that all on paper, or you can do it on the Google Docs titled Review Questions. Writing activities, you can do it all on paper, or you can do it on the Google Docs titled Writing Activities. So, hopefully you guys have all got that by now. But, so I have my answers written down over here, so I'm gonna be looking back and forth. So sorry if I'm making you crazy looking all over the place. But what emotion does Ben evoke when he asks Sal why she flinches whenever she is touched? So if you remember, she just keeps on flinching and she's like, oh, like she keeps on saying like, no, I'm not flinching, but obviously she is. Um, so the emotion that Sal like lets loose is she's really surprised that Ben makes this observation, and she wonders whether she might be becoming stiff or unaffectionate since the time that her mother left. So she was surprised. She was like, "Oh my gosh, I am flinching. What is wrong with me?" What comment does Gramps make to Graham every night? What story lies behind his comment? How does this describe their relationship? So the comment, we read the whole background story. This ain't our marriage bed, but it'll do. I'm obsessed with this story. I think it is the cutest thing on earth. So it has to do with the bed that Graham and Gramps have shared together every single night of their whole marriage. They call it their marriage bed. And since they're sleeping in hotels and other places, they're not in their marriage bed. So it just symbolizes how like special they take, like they think every moment is this simple mattress they think is the most special thing ever. So I think that says a lot about them and their relationship, how they don't take things for granted. And he's just saying like, even though this isn't our bed, this isn't our place, it's still gonna do. I still have you. So you could have wrote something similar to that answer. Number 3, what unexpected events causes a sudden change in the trio's travel plans? Who is Tom Fleet and how does he help? In case you noticed, there is a typo in number 3. Next, it's supposed to say Tom Fleet. It says To Fleet. I apologize. I made this really fast. Well, actually, it took me a couple hours, but I was typing fast when I made it. So I apologize. It's supposed to say Tom Fleet. And obviously, this huge event. Like, oh my gosh, Mrs. Kneifel was on her toes reading it. Obviously, the unexpected event was they went in that little river and grandma was bitten by a water moccasin, so they had to go to the hospital. It's super super dangerous and poisonous, so that clearly put a pause on the trip. Tom Fleet was the random boy teenager who was on the riverbank saying it was private property, and he ended up helping out a ton when he sucked grandma's wound, the poison out of it, and told them how to get to the hospital. So he was a major help. He sucked the wound out and he gave them directions to the hospital. And he stayed with Sal until the next day. So that was very kind of him. Grandma had to be there all the whole night, but then she did get out the next day. So that was definitely a big thing that happened in that chapter. I'm super glad Grandma is okay. All right. And lastly, 4, describe the singing tree.